Right. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the session that we had earlier. I think what we really should do is what I call bridge the gap. So we make sure that we have like an aligned product positioning between open source and commerce. Also in the marketplace, that's what Ravi's going to touch on, that we have like an aligned vendor experience, how it just feels. And I think in terms of the marketplace,
so
is this
what we are talking about right now
you have
is
your own mic, you know that?
Oh yeah, but what we are talking about is right now the outcome from the roadmap session that we had during the lunch hour. So that's what we are debriefing you on. Yeah, I just want to give the context.
Oh damn, you're right. I completely forgot the context.
Context.
Awesome. So who figured that out from my first 3 points? I'm sorry about that. So, another thing that came up during that session is that in the quality of the descriptions in the marketplace isn't like the greatest stuff, and there's guidelines in place what you should do. I personally think that we should turn those into rules. You know, like you have to have like a little icon for it. You have to have more than 3 words of a description, because otherwise vendors have no clue what they're getting into, right? Yeah, moving on, in regards to SMB focus, I think that, I mean, we already see merchants coming like back from the SaaS platforms because they went through this whole hype and grass green on the other side thing. However, I think in order to retain those merchants, we should improve the performance, make sure that hosting isn't like thousands of dollars per month, right? Because that's one of the reasons why people move over to the SaaS platform in the first place. Maybe we can cut back on making stuff like Elasticsearch like optional, right? So that you can run it on like a lower tier hosting platform, right? I also think that we should focus the marketing efforts towards those merchants, because like we had the same discussion in Meet Magento India like a week and a half back, where it's like e-commerce is no longer like the hype thing that you have to have. It's a commodity, it's necessary, it's mandatory. You have it anyways. So we should make sure that merchants are like addressed that way. That we say like, hey, we know you need to have this. We got your back. We understand the requirements. Yada yada yada. Clicky thing. There we go. Then one of the discussions was about bringing a little bit of B2B back.
Into open source.
Into Magento open source. I personally believe that we should still provide like a meaningful upgrade path towards Adobe Commerce. That's what I still believe that should be the case. And in terms of improving performance, we also have to improve performance like at scale. On a little tiny personal note, we do have a prototype, like a working prototype of the indexer running, which does no longer scale exponentially, but linearly. So we have cases where we increased indexer performance by, what was it, like 4,000%-ish? It's like really freaking fast. So we will start like a little crowdfunding thing because we need to finalize it and prepare it for the release later on. So if you feel like indexer performance is like one of your pain points, hit me up. Special thank you to Ivan, who like put a tremendous amount of work in there. Final point is in terms of marketing and visibility, I think we should be bolder in terms of the community. We're very tech-driven community, very developer-driven community, and there's mostly only like one accurate answer. And a lot of the things that marketing does is work with feelings and assumptions and, you know, do stuff like that. So if somebody says like our checkout has like 78% better conversion rates, then what? It's like me saying Magento stores convert with 2.5% more love than the next leading brand, right? But still we can play that game, and we should, because that's marketing, so we don't always have to be like super correct with stuff. We can also play with feelings, and I think we should do that. Other things we're trying to get back is do something like an ROI calculator, because merchants just love moving faders around and then, you know, see numbers change. Battle cards is a big one, so that it's easier if the merchant has like a set of options and you're confronted with that you can just pull out the according battle card and go like, hey, these are the pros and cons of the different systems, and come up with a good recommendation. This one's going to be pretty unpopular, I guess, but I also think that we shouldn't use Magento as a silver bullet for any requirement, right? We have to be honest with the merchant. If it's like a super tiny shop,
yeah, good shop. Right.
It might not be necessary to fire up a Magento install in the first place. So that works. And what I touched on earlier, like showcases. I think showcases are important, and we shouldn't just go, like I said earlier, just highlight those like space shuttle level projects, because that will alienate the smaller merchants, because they will think, hey, this is not for me, it's too big, right? So that's my thought on stuff. Ritesh?
Okay. All right, why don't we get to the next slide? Are you Mr. Clicker? There you go. Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say, you know now why Mathias is the executive director. He just went straight into everything and action, and so many bullets, which is great, right? I'll get there with I only have 2 bullets really to talk about, but I just want to say this session that we're sort of reporting on was the first, I think, at least of its kind ever since I've been involved, and it was interesting, right? We had a lot of different viewpoints, a lot of different thoughts. I thought it was a very productive conversation, right? I mean, there was not agreement, obviously, but there was not hostility either, right? And I think that's the way that we're going to be able to identify things and move forward. So I definitely appreciate everyone who took the time, who contributed ahead of time to sort of the agenda that we shared and the ideas that came forth. That being said, I think, Mathias, you hit on this a little bit, but I think one of the things that was super important to me, and it was made clear, right? Like the Adobe Commerce Marketplace, there's opportunity areas there. I mean, you know, we run the marketplace, but sometimes it's like proofreading your own essay, right? You know, it looks fine, and then someone else comes up, but, and I was like, oh yeah, actually there's things there. And so I think there's definitely an opportunity to look at how it's positioned and what the goal of that marketplace is. I mean, just think about it for one example, like for any iPhone holders out there, when you think about downloading an app for your iPhone, you go to the App Store, the Apple App Store, and nowhere else, right? When you think about getting an extension for your Magento platform, there's many places that you can go to pull that extension down, right? And so I think as a group, we have to determine what is the role of this marketplace that we have, and do we want it to be the destination? Do we want it to be the place that people discover stuff, or do we not? And I think once we get clear on that type of stuff, we'll better be able to deliver the right marketplace or not, and key in on some of the goals and objectives there. The second thing I want to touch upon is the positioning of Magento, right? And, you know, amongst this community, there's always been the conversation around Magento versus Adobe Commerce, right? And that dialogue will continue, and because we're so closely embedded, it should continue. That being said, as I touched upon earlier today in the morning, I think it's a crucial time for us to consider how Magento positions itself against some of the other e-commerce platforms as well, and how we all come together in order to try to figure out, you know, when it's right, when it's not right. I mean, you gave an example of, you know, maybe someone's too small and Magento is not the right tool for them. It's, you know, and that's perfectly fine. But I think that was very, you know, over the last few weeks, that has been, that top of mind for me is to understand as a group, as a community, as Magento Open Source and Adobe Commerce, how do we actually position, strengthen our brand globally, and really compete well against some of the other e-commerce players who are sort of coming and looking at opportunities as we try to figure that stuff out. So those are 2 areas that were super important to me.
The agenda item that was from my side and that I rally for, and I think is the most important, is around this quote, you know, that I live by and I breathe every day. It's so simple to be difficult and very difficult to be simple. And why am I talking about that? Why? Because I think that the brands are feeling the pain, and we need to make things simpler for them. And allow me to explain how. So this is a typical, on the left side is the architecture for guys like Ivan, all the technical people like Jacob and all. And on the right side is for guys like me, which is very simpler diagram. So Magento comprises of these components. Magento framework, which is the base. On top of it, we have Magento core modules. So Magento open source is 350 modules roughly. And Adobe Commerce is around 480, 490 modules. On top of it, there are extensions from the marketplace that we're talking about that. We have 4,000 of them right now, right, from various providers. And then there are SaaS applications like the Dart Digital and the Avalar of the world. They use the API and they sit outside. So now, why are the brands feeling pain? Because these extensions are sitting on top of the core modules or core Magento framework. On an average, there are 70 to 80 extensions that are available on a Magento instance. And I'm talking about a brand doing just few $1 million in GMV, right? And they are from 7 to 8 different providers. So in a Magento instance, at any given point of time, there are 7 to 8 different cooks in the kitchen, right? The licensing of these extensions is very complicated. So right now, the way they are sold are, let's say it's $X for the initial license, then it is 2X for Adobe Commerce, and some extension provider charge 2.5X for Commerce Cloud, Adobe Commerce Cloud. And then after that, after 30 days of using that extension, if you want new versions of the product mainly, or if you want the support and maintenance, then you have to pay on an average per year 0.5, like 50% of that cost. So 0.5X for open source or X for Adobe Commerce. That is fairly complicated. 3 different pricing tiers on 3 different editions, initial licensing, and then recurring. That's too complicated. It's too complicated. Plus, think of it that there are, out of these 70 extensions, let's say 50 are paid. That means there are 50 subscriptions on different timelines, on different credit card. One Ben may have bought, one Nicole may have bought, right? How is it, and people come and go. The buying experience is super difficult. It is just like B2C. These extensions belong to the brand, belong to that website, belong to a customer. So it is impossible. I mean, just ask yourselves, how is it possible for a brand to do business on a Magento platform and manage this 50 subscription when we are already living in a world of subscription fatigue, right? So it's simply impossible, right? Now, what is the side effect of it? So in my example, these lines are, let's say these lines are 10 stores. And these 10 stores are on same version of Magento, which is 2.4.7. I mean, if you can see the left one on the Magento, 2.4.7. And then they have the same extensions, let's say, 10 of them, right? So ideally, their footprint should be the same. Their footprint should be the same, right? But what ends up happening is because managing this subscription is super impossible, so what the devs or the agencies end up doing is that they upgrade the Magento. So they're upgrading the base without upgrading what is sitting on top of that. How is it going to be healthy? So now each, with the same number of extensions, same version of Magento, the footprint of that Magento instance can still be different. It can be all over the place. And just imagine with 70 extensions, how many permutation combinations are possible. As a result, there is a huge friction between these extensions. Cost of maintenance increases. There is not efficiency. And there is a heavy cost of maintenance, right? So that's the pain that people are facing. Now, what's the solution? How can we solve this? So first thing is we need to, as a prerequisite, simplify the licensing part of it, right? So that's why on Aheadworks, we launched simple licensing. So no matter what edition of Magento you are on, you will pay $X per year. That's it, as simple as. So we reduce the pricing for Adobe Commerce. And to be honest, all these extensions, 99.9% of the time, are the same code. So why there should be different pricing tiers based on the edition of the product, right? They should not be. It should be based on usage, and the community needs to evolve there. But if we make that licensing simple, Now that is something that we can do. Aheadworks have done that, MST should do it, Mage Plaza should do it, everybody should do it. Then all these extensions are centrally housed at marketplace. We need to have that central authority, and which is that authority? That's the marketplace. And that's the change we are requesting Adobe to make. If we make that as one bill, so that means if you are on open source, cost of your license for the platform is 0. You have 50 extensions, you pay a few $100 a month, it's one bill, right? That's it. If we can introduce that change, if you're on Adobe Commerce Cloud, you get Adobe Commerce Cloud licensing, and you get extensions, one bill. So now when you will introduce this change, then the ease of doing business and maintaining these extensions will be there. So when you do setup upgrade or composer upgrade, whatever technical thing that we do, so from the composer, Magento latest, let's say 2.7, 2.4.7 version will be pulled, and the respective extension that is compatible with that version will be pulled and installed. So this should be the how the footprint of Magento should look like. So if I'm on 2.4.7, all the extensions should be in the same line and in alignment with the 2.4.7. To me, this change will really help brands and do business with Magento as a platform. And I talk about it in much more detail. There's a much more detailed plan that we have in place, but you can scan this barcode. I sit down with Brent and we talk about that. So if you want to listen to it in detail, and that is pretty much it. The homework is done. Now it's playtime, so we will have dinner by the pool at 6:30. 6:30 to 7:30, be there in that time window because there's a small surprise for you all. And after that, we don't stop. We don't stop here. The fun component and the fun keeps on going. We booked the entire nightclub for you all, so we'll see you at 10:30 at Entice Nightclub. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, everyone. Thank you all the sponsors. Thank you all the volunteers. Thank you, MCs. Thank you all of you for attending this conference and sponsoring this conference for your valuable time. Thank you.